right, Zig coming in on the top 10 on the show. We have David J. David J. of Bauhaus, of Love and Rockets, and now the Night Crickets. This is a super epic chat we had. I'm very, very stoked about it, and it was such an honor to chat with David J. The Night Crickets is the new band, and it consists of David J., Victor DeLorenzo of the Violent Femmes, and Darwin Meiners. Incredibly epic lineup, and the album matches. The album's called Free Society. It's out now on all streaming platforms. We're going to listen to a tune in a bit. Just going to do a little self-update. Lots been going on. October's been a wild month. A lot of cool things, a lot of not-so-cool things. This is being recorded the day after the year anniversary of my mother's passing, and Halloween and October is always kind of a special time. We used to hang out and watch old horror movies. So this year's been a little different. Been carrying on in doing that and kind of being in it for all the good and bad that's come with it. But this series of interviews that's coming out has helped out a lot. And this being the first entry, we're going to talk to each one of the Night Crickets and hear their perspective and how they perceive this album and how it came together from each angle, and celebrate this epic release. And having something like that to focus on and kind of celebrate the season in a way has really helped me handle everything that's been going on. I find myself not avoiding these emotional ups and downs, but being in it, and then also having an outlet that's exciting has really helped out. Yeah. Also, if you're new to this podcast, sorry, that was a lot, but if you're new to this podcast, I play in a band called C Level, letters C dash. We are playing October 13th, Thursday, at No Class, opening for Joe Buck Yourself. It's going to be a really fun rockabilly punk night. So if you're in Cleveland, that'd be a fun one. Also, November 12th at the Winchester with Wanyama for their comeback, also in Cleveland. And that's it. No more plugs for me. That's what I have going on. Night Crickets is what we're going to talk about from here on out. So David J., this was a really, really cool, insightful conversation. And so many insane stories which are going to come out of this. But actually a lot of Cleveland-based stuff, which was really cool and relatable on my end. One of which being Peter Loeffner. Now, returning listeners will recall a year ago or so, I talked to Adele Bertay, who's a singer-songwriter and professional vocalist with accolades a list a mile long. We talked with her about her new book, Peter and the Wolves, which was a memoir of her musical upbringing, her artist journey, and her guidance from Peter Loeffner, a Cleveland-based singer-songwriter. The first track on this record was written about Peter Loeffner, the first track being Black Leather on the Inside. And that's what we're going to listen to now. So pay attention to that guitar riff loop. David J. tells a really cool story about where that came from. And here we go. Black Leather on the Inside, the Night Crickets, and the album is Free Society. Black Leather on the Inside, the Night Crickets, Free Society's album, available now on all streaming platforms. So Peter Loeffner, he was a musician who brought punk to Cleveland. And he was a founding member of the band Rocket from the Tombs, which broke up, and each half went in a different direction. One half formed the Dead Boys, and the other half formed Perubu. So, very cool individual who wasn't around too long to see what he started in a way. But it was cool to talk to David J. about him. And we'll get into that later. David J. also has this very, very cool story about David Bowie and meeting him. But before we get to that, one last thing. If you can like, rate, review, subscribe to the podcast on any of the podcast platforms, it helps me keep talking to cool guests and sharing their insight with you. So without further ado, here's my chat with David J. Kind of get a basis of where you kind of like started. So did you start with guitar musically?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
a cheap guitar. Yeah, and I was in a bunch of guys who all wanted to be the lead guitar player, and we sort of we wanted to form a band, but it wasn't really a proper band. But it was just a bunch of us who were inspired really by David Bowie
Yeah.
and Ziggy Stardust, all like getting together and trying to work out what the hell we're going to do. And nobody wanted to be the bass player, and I was also in tandem with being into Bowie. I was into reggae, so I I was inspired by the bass sounds of reggae, and I thought, well, that's the bass guitar. I don't mind picking that up. Yeah. So my first bass was actually my cheap, crappy electric six-string guitar, and I took the top two strings off, turned all the treble down on my amp and all the bass up, and
Nice.
that was my first kind of makeshift ad hoc bass.
That's awesome. Was it a? It's reggae. Reggae has that the bass cuts right through, and I think it's that syncopated rhythm with everything else that really makes it shine, and kind of lets
Yeah.
that bass be heard and be its own force within that. That's
Oh yeah. So it's integral. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Oh, that's cool. So, so you started off with guitar and then moved to bass to necessity because I think that's the story everywhere. Every guitar guy wants to be lead, wants to be up front and doing the shredding bits, but
Yeah.
it's that kind of it's more there's more musicality within the space and filling it. Um, you studied with a guy named Jim Tyson, right?
Yeah.
And was he like one of those shredder guys that was showing you?
Oh
How,
no, not at all. No, not at all. No, he was a jazz guy.
yeah,
He was yeah, he was very subtle, and he was into singer songwriter stuff. And I just had a few lessons from him. I mean, I would go round to his house, and he would, as a special treat at the end of each lesson, he'd let me play one song on his beautiful 1967 Gibson J45 acoustic. I know I'd play a song from the Beatles songbook.
what Beatles tunes would you gravitate to?
Oh God. Norwegian Wood. They were the more acoustic ones, you
Mm.
know. God, let's go. It's going back. uh, yeah, like it's sort of mid-period, like Rubber Soul, the more acoustic songs on that. A couple of songs from the White Album, the acoustic numbers. Um, yeah,
Mm. That's it's a big move to kind of want to step to the bass and be in a band. A lot of like what age were you when you were figuring out and being taken away by Ziggy Stardust?
14.
14. Yeah, so that's a huge mature thing to do to be like I want to like support, and to find a way where it's interesting and cool and exciting like the fine reggae.
Well, it kind of fit my personality as well. You know, didn't feel like being up front. I was happier being sort of two steps back,
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
keeping a kind of semi-low profile and just getting on and doing the job. I mean, I do have that other side though. I do have the more extrovert, shall we say, side that's come out more as I've got older. And you know, sometimes I just sing. You know, I
Yeah.
just perform as a singer. And that actually the actual height of my experience in that area was when I performed with a 13-piece jazz orchestra in Detroit,
Whoa.
Theatre Bizarre Orchestra. We made an album called Carpe Noctem, and I'm really proud of that one because that was really out of my depth, and I like that challenge of being kind of uncomfortable, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's like to be behind like an instrument kind of supporting how you sing and how you approach singing. And then to take yourself out of it, it's so strange. Like, what do I do with my hands?
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like,
I don't have any problem with what to do with my hands. I just find, you know, like expressive movement comes very natural to me, so that's not a problem. I know what you're saying,
yeah,
that
yeah,
you can hide behind the instrument. It's more a psychological thing. You know, you have an instrument there, and it's kind of like armor.
right.
Whereas if you don't have it, you're just singing. You have no armor, only your personality, or your vibe that you put out.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a vulnerable place to be because like
Mm.
the voice is something that people they don't hold back on. Like you can tell when someone is moved by it, and and that instrument kind of helps guide that. Well, they're doing two things at once. Good for them. That's cool. They can be okay at one. Um, but wow, that's like so kind of moving on. So diving into like reggae music, when did I know there's a big Jamaican scene and culture around where you grew up. What were some of the early bass lines that kind of stuck out and you got under your fingers that made it possible? They're like, this is what I'm gonna go with.
Yeah. Things like Toots and the Maytals,
Mm.
Desmond Decker, um, and then Lee Scratch Perry, the Upsetter, and that Lee Scratch Perry led me into dub, and that was a very big like leap forward, like getting into that area. Just like so everything's stripped down, and the thing that is pervasive is the bass, and it's mixed right up, and it's
Yeah,
very very full. So things like King Tubby, um, yeah, King Tubby and Mikey Dread and Lee Scratch Perry, three big ones.
yeah. Dub's like a fascinating world. It's like the negative space within a painting. It's like
Yeah,
the more you take away, the more it like kind of like comes to life. And
it's kind of like it's sculptural in that way
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
abstract.
yeah.
Yeah,
And that's what's so beautiful about it. And it's cool because some of the artists that they would take another track, and just tear it apart, and then now
yeah,
you're finding like this beauty within it, kind of pieces of a song before you're taken away from what already exists. And
deconstruction.
right, right. That's a whole like mind jolting experience. You did work with Uroy, right?
I did a track, yeah, playing with
Yeah,
you, Rise, another hero.
that's epic.
Yes, that was a wonderful experience. Yeah,
How'd that come about?
through the producer,
Yeah.
um, um, gosh, his name's just gone, just slipped from me. It's going to come back. He was putting together uh, a bunch of different takes, different artists, putting them together with Roy, yeah, and using contemporary artists as well as some of the old Jamaican old guard. And he asked me to play on it, and I was absolutely delighted to do that.
Did was Uroy giving you like direction with it, or was this
Oh
from?
no, no,
Oh,
no!
okay, okay.
I wasn't even. I wasn't even in the studio with the man.
Ah,
I think he was back in Jamaica. I mean, he's pretty
yeah,
old when he
yeah.
did that. So he did his vocal to a basic track,
Hmm.
and then it was sent out to the musicians. Not many of the musicians were actually in the studio with him, and it's just down to me to come up with some bass and any other ideas. I played the keyboard thing on it, and some bells, and I worked with my friend DJ K Robert Cakeley is a really great engineer, and he's very much into reggae. So we worked away at it and then sent it back to them and to the producer and to you, Roy, and they liked it. So I think it was it was a single, love and dub.
Um, like hearing it back, were you surprised by what they did, or did they just keep the track as is?
Well, we kind of mixed it, me and Rob.
Okay,
We did
so
our mix, and then they just they mastered it really.
okay,
So there wasn't that much they did. They just sent this sort of the stems, the vocal stems, and so just a really basic rhythm. The drums. We kept the drums, and then I just played along to it.
that's so cool. That's so cool to work with a dub master, man. Wow.
Oh yeah. Well, in Northamptonshire, there was a very big scene. There's a lot of Rastafarians there, and
Yeah.
they would have, they would have this, they would have a regular event, like twice a month in this big cavernous room, and they would have a sound system come in, and they would have toasters like Roy and I, like toasting over the top, and it was just they had a goat's head soup, and and it's just like it was kind of an autonomous free zone because the police would just leave it alone. Now everybody's smoking ganja, but the police didn't interfere because it was not worth it, and because it's sort of all black brethren, So I would go there. This was me and Daniel from
Yeah.
Bauhaus, and my brother, and one other friend. We're four white guys in there, and no trouble. So they kind of looked at us like, who are you guys? Why are you coming here? The first time we went, but then became regulars, and it was like they're really friendly, and it was very cool.
Was this like before Bauhaus, or was this like
It was,
after?
it was just before Bauhaus, just like not 78, 77, 78. Yeah, yeah.
So was this like kind of like a really like one of your first like experiences with like immersing yourself in like another music's kind of culture?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow,
Yeah, yeah.
that's profound. That's cool. Did you were like because I know there was some other kind of like the pop group kind of had some of the dub influence. Were
Oh,
other
yeah.
groups like that kind of highlighting that as well that influenced your playing?
Yeah. Well, Pill was a big one, especially with a metal box. And
Oh
Jar
yeah,
Wobble, what a brilliant bass player, just
right.
totally in the pocket and really influenced by dub. I mean, that's where he's coming from. Um, so those, yeah, they come immediately to mind. Um, XTC did a really interesting dub EP from their. It was like a dub take on their album. Um, it was called, was it Go Plus?
Oh yeah, yeah.
And it's very stripped down. I still got my copy of that. Yeah, so that was interesting to hear about.
Yeah, it's like I was like I don't know. It's amazing how like more comes out when you take stuff away, like
Yeah,
or more, and maybe it's just more shown. But like I don't know. That's such kind of like a higher like even like musically when you start playing, like everyone wants to start doing the solos and stuff on David Bowie. Like they want to do the shredding stuff. They want to play fast and play a lot. But the things that impact are taking those away. It's
yeah,
the less being said. It's like, or I guess to put it in like written context, it's like a quote says more than maybe the passage through the book.
yeah. So I suppose it's like sort of the distilled essence.
Right.
Yeah, I just remember the name, the producer, Dub Gabriel,
Cool.
the guy
Yeah.
behind the U Roy track. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He's a great guy, and he introduced me to the master musicians of Jajuka
Yeah.
from North Africa, and I played with them. He had all those guys around his flat in San Francisco and invited me around to this sort of open jam session, and
Whoa.
yeah, they played non-stop for hours,
Yeah.
and yeah, and it was just sort of like local musicians or invited musicians, really good ones, just sitting in with those guys, and then Bashir, who's the leader, would give you the nod, and then it's like terrifying. You'd have to take a solo.
Yeah.
But I loved doing that, and yeah, it was. And I recorded that day after that session. I recorded with Bashir and with Dub Gabriel, and we did this. It was a very, very special moment because his son was being born in the village in Chajuka. He couldn't be there because he's on tour. So that very night, and it was timed. It's making me shiver now thinking about this. But we went down into the basement recording studio, and we improvised this song to usher in the guy who is going to be the new leader of the master musicians of Jajuka in the future, because it's a heritage thing, it's
Yeah.
passed
Yeah.
down. And Salahaddin is his name, and we ushered him into the world. And it actually occurred, the birth occurred when we were making that music. Yeah, and it's really powerful. The piece is very powerful.
Oh man, yeah, like that's incredible. Like I remember Joe Strummer's radio show got me hip to them, and
Yeah,
like man, to
right.
be there in that prominent of a rite of passage.
Yeah.
I don't know how you find another musical experience that can kind of get you that moved besides maybe a 13-piece jazz band that you're fronting. Like
Yeah,
it
yeah.
checking out. Jeez.
I'll you send me your email and I'll forward it to you.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Definitely want to
And
hear that.
we put it out. We really released it as a single. Job Gabriel released it as a single, and then it was picked up by the station here, KCRW, which is a great
Yeah.
station, and they made it their featured track of the day, you know, and it was available as a download. Yeah,
Amazing. How like so okay, kind of like honing in on like when you're playing a piece with a group of a large group of people, right? And like it's there's no like kind of constructed form. It's just kind of a loose form or not even a
mm,
form at all. And you're really
sure.
riding this wave. Like
Mm,
there's like this kind of like group trance mentality that like doesn't come
yeah,
out of like any other type of musicianship. And like I think dub like stepping in with dub at your very kind of like early age of like making your own music like kind of preps that kind of like ability to ride that because I think a lot of musicians get lost without what key am I in, what you know what I mean,
yeah.
like to be.
I don't care about that. Yeah, it's a matter tuning into flow. It's a flow, and we really had that with the Night Crickets album, like big
Yeah.
time. You know, it was very improvised. And when I was doing my bass parts, I mean, how the process was, Victor would lay down the drums, and for the duration of a track, it'd be the 3 minutes, 4 minutes,
Mm,
and so it wasn't loops. It was actually, you know, played real time as a constructed rhythmic bass. And I would purposely not listen to what he'd done. Even when I went to the studio, I
yeah.
didn't even listen before I did a take. So the first time I heard that was when I was recording the bass and the red light was on it and I was doing it. And it was really quite weird, uncanny, because I started playing bass lines before hearing the track, just before rolling it, you know, and recording. And what I would come up with, just in spur of the moment, would always fit. And it would just, that's, I'd kind of like had a premonition
Yeah.
of what this track was going to be. And in the right key, the right rhythm, the right feel, mood, and all the bass lines on the album were conceived in that way.
Now, like, was he just sending drum tracks, or was there more? Was there like progression kind of already put in?
It was just drum
Just drum
tracks.
tracks.
But there were passages. You know, he would
Okay.
change the rhythm, and there would be a little fill, and he'd go somewhere else. You know, so then we built on that. And then I would send that to Darwin, and he would add guitar, keyboards, maybe some vocals, and then send it back to Victor. He would add stuff like keyboard stuff or vocals. Send it back to me. I would add vocals. So I had this drone. It's a great little drone box from
Yeah.
Bombay called a Rajini. It's
Yeah.
based on a tambura,
Right.
and
Right.
it's electronic drone box. That's all the way through the album. If you listen, that drone.
Okay. Yeah. Like I heard there's definitely a space through the record, and like that's cool. I didn't pick up that it was all the way through. That's sweet. I got lost in like the movements of it.
Yeah, sometimes it's really super subtle.
Was it so with like so okay, so jumping into like this track like you guys you and Darwin and Victor worked on Darwin's record, right? Starfishing? Or no, it was the EP,
Yeah.
Souvenir.
No, I produced Starfishing and played a bit on it.
Okay.
Um, and the single we all played on, yeah, that was the first thing that we did.
Okay. And like
Yeah.
so was that kind of what inspired the Night Crickets?
No, it was because we Darwin and I went to see the Violent Femmes at Coachella,
Yeah?
and we, we're both like really into the films, and then Darwin was backstage and he met Victor and they hit it off, and they exchanged emails and they started corresponding, and then Darwin came up with the idea of them. This was when now we're in pandemic lockdown period, and Darwin suggested to Victor that they exchange files and work on some music, and then Victor said, well, would David be into doing that as well? And David was into doing that very much so. So that's
David
how it
agreed.
started. Yeah, and we just did the whole album without meeting up. It's all totally remote.
Wow, that's incredible. You know, there's like a, I think there's like this like, and it's with like creatives and in general, it's just like this ability to appreciate like a thing that may be overlooked. Like a photographer is going to see an image, a passing of time that is going to resonate in the moment, or a writer is going to
Mm.
hear a passage that's going to capture it and like make it into a bigger thing. And like I think musically, to be able to hear just a drum track, or not even hear it, just feel a drum track and be able to make a record like you guys did is like it's being able to appreciate those fleeting moments. And like I think the kind of dive into one of the tunes on this record, Soul Wave, I think really kind of the idea of energy being fragile and the idea of like
Mm.
kind of being within this energy and be able to shape and express it. I don't know
Yeah,
if that's what that Soul Wave was going for, but after talking
yeah,
with you for a
yeah,
little bit, it seems like that's really how you approach a lot of things.
yeah. That is it. Yeah, and we found that we were all very much on the same wavelength. There was no sort of hesitation in all of us felt this, experienced this, and when we were working on our parts, it was very quick, very spontaneous, just reacting to each of us had done prior, and it just we had this flow all the time. So I mean, we didn't even plan to do an album. We were just experimenting, and just enjoying the process. And but it went so quickly. We had an album before we knew it, and we actually had more than an album. We got enough now for a 6-track EP.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, that's
we
exciting.
just kept on, kept going.
Was there like a track within this record that was like, oh, we gotta make this a record, that like solidified that this has to come out?
Oh, as soon as we started
Oh,
working
just
on the music, I think the first one was certainly one of the first ones was the opening track, Black Leather on the Inside. And it's interesting you're from Cleveland, um, because that track was inspired by a Cleveland original, Peter Loeffner. You
oh
familiar with him?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I just
Okay.
oh well, how so? Yeah, sorry, don't let me cut you.
Okay. Well, um, um, how I discovered him was I was playing. I did this circuit of living room shows, and I was doing that for actually over 10 years, just solo. And
Yeah.
I'd go all over the world, but a lot in America. And I was down in Santa Fe, and I did played in a backyard. And after my set, I was approached by this gentleman, rather distinguished gentleman with a deep chocolate brown radio voice. And I thought he's got to be like a DJ or something on the radio.
Right.
And it turns out he was, and actually a very respected one down there. And he said that my songs reminded him of Peter Loeffner, who at the time I wasn't familiar with. And he said, you should cover one of his songs, go and check him out. So I did. When I got back to my digs, I went down a rabbit hole and I discovered Peter Loeffner big time. And I was really blown away. Um, he said to play Cinderella Backstreet was the song he
Yeah.
recommended. And he said, I can imagine you covering that. I'm actually thinking of doing that. I actually ended up recording a version of his song Baudelaire, which I
Yeah.
love.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a
I
great
recorded
song.
you. So I think it's great. You're familiar with him. Um, and I recorded that in Prague, and that turned out really well. Um, and so that I bought the box set, the Peter Loeffner box set,
Nice.
which is
Yeah. Yeah.
beautiful. And then one night, this is in the middle of working, like getting ready to go into the studio. I was playing that, and one of the tracks stuck. The needle stuck, stylus, and it just kept looping on this strummed guitar
Yeah.
and a beat, you know. And I just heard that, and you're talking about like picking up on the fleeting moments and seeing the magic in them. Well, I saw that, and so I just recorded it on my phone because I loved what it was doing. The loop
Yeah.
I had a fire going, a log fire at the same time next to the speaker, so you could hear that on the recording. Anyway, I took that in, and Victor had sent a drum beat, and I thought, I bet this is going to sync with that drum beat when I heard it, because this was one where I didn't do the bass. I had this recording, and I wanted to see what Victor had done, see if it syncopated, and sure enough, it did. He just flew it in at random, and it just gels with what he was playing. So that really like inspired me, and I thought, okay, well look, we've stolen this from Peter Loeffner, so I'm going to make a little tribute to him. So that's what that song's about. It's about Peter Loeffner, and yeah. So I actually I recalled Lester Bang's obituary where he's talking um, about the ritual that Loeffner had when Lester Bangs would go around and listen to read records, and he'd be on. It scared Lester Bangs because I mean, it's going to take a lot to scare Lester Bangs, but apparently Loeffner did it, and he would have this thing of drinking beer and taking Valium
Shooting
and
guns.
uh, Courvoisier, you know, like,
Yeah.
and doing it like one after the other. And that was
Yeah.
his thing. So I referenced that. Anyway, the whole thing it's a tribute to Peter Loeffner, who I think was like a absolutely inspired musician. I mean, it's amazing he died at 24.
I, oh, that's so cool. Now that with that explanation, I'm hearing it come together in my head. I
Yeah.
Yeah, I became hip to him through Adele Bertay. Are you familiar with her?
No.
Okay, Adele Bertay lived with Peter Loeffner for a while, and
Oh,
she's a singer songwriter and a backup singer for like Tears of Fears, and like she's done a lot. Her register is crazy, but she released a book called Peter and the Wolf. And in that
oh,
book, that's basically a memoir of her musical journey and her life journey and dealing with her sexuality, and how Peter was this kind of guiding, misguided figure. And like,
huh.
so she like preserved this like this beautiful part of Peter that kind of gets buried behind the madness. And she had
Yep.
a big to do with getting that box set together, which is
Oh,
an
okay.
incredible box set.
Yeah.
So if you email me that, I'll email a link to her book. Like it's incredible.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Really.
And
Yeah.
he also had I'm sure you know, but he had a lot to do with Perubu and
Oh, yeah.
yeah, yeah. And like that
And
was
Rocket from the Tombs.
tunes. Right, right, right. Like because of him, like punk rock came to Cleveland. Like the
Yeah.
first television show he was at, and he got so out of it, he scared television. Like,
Yeah.
so cool. Like, and I went down that same rabbit hole with that box set, and there's so many good songs on that, and it just warms my heart to hear that more people are going down the Peter Loeffner rabbit hole. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Cool. Um, Another like so with the title track "Free Society," that opening bass line kind of hit me as
Yeah.
like a Curtis Mayfield like kind of inspiree, like I don't know, I'm sure it's not at all, but and there's this like one like tension note that resolves perfectly. Was that one of those bass lines that you just started playing before the drums came in?
Well, all the bass lines were, yeah. It just came to
Wow.
me, just like spur of the
Yeah.
moment. I started playing it and rolled, recording.
That like I think there's another thing with like uh kind of like practicing being in that flow state, being in that creative like headspace where stuff like that
Mm.
can just happen. Because I think
Yes.
a lot of musicians get caught up with like technique and like making sure they hit something that's correct.
Yeah.
And like, so was that kind of like always how you approach songwriting?
Not really. I mean,
Okay,
it takes a lot of experience, I think, to get to
I agree.
that state,
Yeah,
and self confidence. No, because when I started, I wanted to learn how to play the songs, So
right.
I would just listen to records and listen to the radio sometimes, just play along, you know. Um, but just repeatedly, like I have a single on, and I just keep playing it. And like I remember playing to "Elected" was one of the first ones, the
Alice
Alice
Cooper,
Cooper,
nice.
like that bass line on that, the descending thing, and just getting very frustrated, and because I was like 15 or something trying to work out that, but I did get it in the end. Also, like Golden Earring, Radar Love,
Yeah, okay.
things like that. But no, it's sort of this where I am at now has evolved. Now it's actually tied in with doing transcendental meditation, which I think
Yeah,
really helps to obtain that flow and that state, of just letting go. It's really letting go, not kind of seizing, the conventional way of like playing in the notes, and the no real right notes. I remember reading something, it was a John Cale interview, and said he didn't give a damn about what key something is in, and it's just what feels right, and it can be completely off in an atonal way, but it fits, and that was that rang true with me. So yeah, so I don't, when I do sessions, I quite often won't, with other people's music, I won't ask what key it's in or anything about it. It's just very like a feel thing. I'll just play along and just feel it, and try and get into this kind of liminal state of mind where it's almost like semi-trance state, and I'm reaching for something that's just not, it's not conventional. I'm reaching as like almost beyond my capability, trying to pull down stars.
I think that's well said. It's like because it's such a open. Like I think your music, like getting ready to talk with you, I dove into all facets of stuff I can get, and like there's a lot of that feel. There's a lot of that kind of expansiveness, but
Mm.
um,
Expansiveness, yes.
in the best, like in a
Yeah.
way, like okay, I got to go back and hear this again, and then like something else illustrates itself, and like and through multiple listens, there's a bigger thing coming through, and I think if
Mm.
if that's the headspace, that makes so much sense. Like
Yeah.
that's really cool.
With the
Like
bass playing, that really came to the fore with Love and Rockets.
yeah,
There's a big leap. I hear that in my own playing, and it's just that exactly what I've just been describing. It was going for something that was a lot more expansive. Yes.
and like
And,
that's cool. That's amazing,
and
man.
I think that tied in with also at that time experimenting with psychedelics
Yeah,
and the expansiveness that comes from that. Yeah, because I didn't really do psychedelics until the first Love and Rockets album, and I was into it, like into it, acid.
yeah. And like, is that what kind of like was meditation a thing that followed after or during?
No, I was doing that before,
Okay, okay. And
but
this,
only like yeah, only the last. I was sort of on and off, and it wasn't like serious transcendental meditation. It was I was taking from different disciplines, and not being very disciplined about it actually, and letting it go. But it was only I did a it was very well timed. I did a proper TM course here in LA, and it was just before the pandemic, so that was
mm,
really timely because I do it in a very focused way now. And I have a mantra that was given to me, Sanskrit mantra, and
right.
I take it seriously, and I find the time twice a day, and I do it, and that really helped get through that weird time.
Right.
But also, it informed my, musical practice, which was mainly the main endeavor was the night crickets.
Okay. That like yeah, like I think I found myself during that time too having to like buckle down to like I routine to myself just every day like and
Mm,
like just I spent time doing like a physical routine, then like a
mm,
small meditation, and then like writing. Like I had multiple writing sessions and like learning session, like where I'd work on just technique and stuff like that, but balanced in between it. And that kind of
yeah,
structure of allowing maybe it was an hour or 45 minutes and doing that every day, like
yeah.
really helped me get through that too. So like that
I
totally
did the
makes
same.
sense. Yeah.
I did the same, and the main thing I did initially was painting.
Yeah.
Getting back into painting big canvases, which is something I had in mind for years and just never got round to it. Always procrastinated, and I thought, okay, this shit's going down. It's gonna be weird. But so this is the time. So the first thing I did before everything was shut down was to go out and buy a bunch of paints and brushes and big canvases and hauled them back to my apartment and just set up this room in the back. And then I painted these like 8 big canvases, and I didn't have a subject or anything. But what came out, of course, was the pandemic situation, all facets of it, and it's just reflected, in these works.
Beautiful. Like, and to dive into that, like, other practice too and give yourself that space for it. Do you plan? I know you've done showings before. Are you planning to show those?
Yeah, I am actually. I've got a couple of galleries here in LA that are pretty interested, well, pretty keen. So I just got to work out which one to go with, and when I can do that.
Very cool. I wanted to
Yeah,
ask about silver for gold, like writing a play and
yeah.
addressing like and running one like that. Like, what brought up? I mean, that's a whole different writing endeavor, like compared to this kind of like loose based, like
Hmm.
play is pretty formal. What brought that about?
Well, initially, I had a publicist, Versa Manos, who was connected with theatre. She represented a lot of actors and theatrical people. And she was in touch with this company, Atlanta, called Dad's Garage, a pretty respected independent theatre company. And they were looking for playwrights to write short plays. They wanted to put on this program of the limit was it was a 15-minute play. I think it was 15 minutes, or maybe it's 20 minutes. I think it's 20 minutes. Anyway, looking for contributions, and my Versa, she thought I could do this, and I never even thought about writing a play before. But she said you should do this. So I got a feeling about it, and she said it in such a convincing way that I took her seriously. And then I was actually on a long road trip as a passenger, and I started writing. Yeah, writing this thing that was they say write about what you know. So I wrote about being a teenager in the punk days in 1976 and going to see the Sex Pistols and just that whole explosion and how it affected me. And it was called Anarchy in the Gold Street Wimpy because there was an appalling incident that occurred in the Gold Street Wimpy,
Yeah.
um, which I write about. Yeah, I was very, very drunk and very naughty. Anyway, yeah, and I ended up somehow. I mean, this was the day the Anarchy in the UK came out, and my mates and I would go to the pub, the Racehorse pub, and get really plastered. And the record store was literally next door, Spinner Disc Records, and I bought that single. I actually bought 2 copies, one for my girlfriend at the time, and one for myself. And then we all went down the Wimpy bar, but I was really blind drunk, and I ended up looking for the toilet, and I ended up in the freezer with all these slabs of meat, and I ended up peeing in the freezer. with this steam coming up and these hunks of meat, and it's like, yeah. So I write about that, and it's
Yeah.
Anarchy in the Gold Street Wimpy. Anyway, it was obviously put on. It was put on,
Yeah.
But they had some really great playwrights, like Tony Award winners. So I had some really august company. I was in some august company there, and they flew me out to Atlanta and I saw it. And it was seeing these actors, really good actors, interpret my ideas, and my especially just the just the imagination that they brought to it, you know,
Yeah.
um, and their own ideas, and it just was kind of lit a fire in me, and I thought, I love this, I love it, and so that was the first spark, and then I just thought, well, I could do more of this, and I had this idea to write about Edie Sedgwick, who'd
Yeah.
always fascinated me, in that whole world of Andy Warhol, Velvet Underground, and Silver Factory. But I had what really made it exciting as an idea for me was that it was not just telling that story, but it's telling it in terms of Greek mythology and aligning it to that. So it's really the story of Persephone, and it's her journey. And Persephone is Edie, and she goes to the underworld, which is the factory. And I have Andy Warhol as Hades. And then I thought, how do I explore this more? So I now have Bob Dylan's Orpheus,
Yeah.
and then the Cerberus, the three-headed god that guards the gates of the underworld. I thought, who are those heads? And I thought, okay, it came to me straight away. There are three acolytes of Andy, and that's Chuck Wine, Paul Morrissey, and Ondine. And those are the three heads, and they can have a conversation, and they're the gatekeepers. So it's just yeah, just
That's fascinating.
using it, seeing it in terms of Greek mythology, and it's her journey, and it plays out in an interesting way in those terms. And also it's a song cycle, and so I wrote like 12 songs, kind of in the style of the Velvet Underground, but really like early Velvet Underground
Right.
acoustic.
Yeah.
But I used their tunings that they use. Like they're all so every string tuned down to E,
Just all of
and
the
the other
E.
one,
Yeah.
yeah, and the other one they used was Gadda, the old folk tuning. That was a favorite tuning of theirs. And then once you have those tunings, it really sort of casts the music in a certain area, gives it a certain tone. And so, the songs are really objective, looking in from the outside, observing what's going on. Then I have Edie. It's more or less a monologue, and she's just talking about her life. She's actually dead, you find out at the end of it. Then I had this other character who's sort of like Greek chorus, and I had this vision of this creature when I was driving. Talk about like being in a liminal state. I was driving like 3 a.m, driving from LA to San Diego one night, and this image just flashed into my head, and I was in the middle of writing the play, and then it had to go straight into it. And it was a man in a wheelchair with a blanket over him and a white horse's head. And I thought, what the hell's that? And I thought it was like that's like a centaur, but in
Right.
reverse. So I called it Norik, which is Chiron, written in reverse.
Yeah.
And this character, he, as I say, is like Greek chorus, but he describes what's happening in terms of Greek mythology, and he just appears behind a screen until the very last scene, where he comes out, and Edie, she's basically passing into the afterlife, and she communes with him. And there's a very magical moment where the soundtrack is the Everly Brothers' Dream,
Yeah.
which is her favorite song. And they touch fingers, and he takes her hand, and that dream starts up, and he escorts her off into wherever they're going,
Right.
heaven, if you want to interpret it in that way, or some kind of afterlife.
That's beautiful. Like so, like after having like that's like to write something like this and kind of like plan all this out. Did you find yourself afterwards like analyzing a lot of works in that kind of same like Greek god like kind of headspace? Because like it takes a while to
I've always been interested in that
yeah.
from when I was a kid. It's something about that really fired my imagination. So yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I went back and looked at it. Yeah.
Like, 'cause I find myself whenever I like figure out a little bit of like how someone approaches a thing, I find myself overdoing it in a way that like it's a healthy, fun like kind of like obsession in a way, and you start analyzing things in a certain way. Like, oh, I wonder if I can put the coltrane changes here. Oh yeah, that's weird.
Huh.
Or you're like pulling apart. Oh, that's a walking bass line played backwards or whatever. You know what I mean? Just weird bits where you start to like, or the hero's journey
What?
is a
I was just going to say Joseph Campbell. That's what I went back to. And the hero with a thousand faces, and yeah, all of that. And I took a course when
yeah.
I was when I was started writing the play. It was for film, writing the film script, but using mythology and all the myths, and it was actually a really good course. The teacher was very good, so that was really useful.
Yeah, the find like because like some of those are like I mean they're everywhere and everything, and then you got the kind of like
Yeah,
a Jungian approach to it too, that kind of
and
like
that was something else I tapped into.
yeah the
Definitely,
archetypes. Yeah,
definitely. Oh yeah,
very cool. Um, the kind of like bounce off because I really appreciate your time and I don't wanna keep you too long.
sure. No, it's
Um,
good.
awesome. Well, thank you. One the bounce back to the record. One
Yeah.
song that struck me as very like Violent Femmes influenced was Down Below, and especially with the backup vocals, I was getting a very Violent Femmes like kind of like melodic idea. Is that kind of what you
Yeah.
guys were going for?
No.
Nope.
You know what? It's just occurred to me, and I hadn't thought of this before, but that kind of reminds me a bit of Perubu in a way.
Yeah. Okay, I can hear that. I
Yeah, I love Perubu. I saw their first gig in London at the Marquee Club.
yeah. Oh man, how was that? Have them over
Oh, it was
like
brilliant. Yeah, he
yeah.
had the anvil. David
Uh
Thomas had the anvil,
yeah.
was striking it with a hammer, sparking it. It was brilliant.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's
I love that band. They brought everything that they brought out.
endless and they're always like I love his metaphor with like I saw this interview clip and because I talked with David a few months ago
Oh,
and
right.
he's such an interesting character, man. Like when
Yeah,
he this interview clip shows him talking about a coffee cup and he's like on the bottom that's Perubu and you're like that makes sense like and how that guy hears music, deconstructs it and puts it back out like is insane. It's one of those things that never get old like trying to figure it out.
yeah. We
So
did two gigs with them in New
yeah.
York. They opened for Love and Rockets, and I felt kind of embarrassed that was the case because I felt like we should have been opening for them because I was such a fan.
Like, how'd they go? Like, was it like, because if in,
Oh, they were well received, yeah.
yeah,
And then I heard from the guitarist. What's his name? But he was a fan. He was really into our music, which was nice.
that's beautiful. It was mutual. That's super cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Because like with I don't know, depending on what form of Perubu you get, you don't know like. But another kind of bouncing off, I guess the Cleveland. You worked with Trent Reznor. What was that
Yeah.
like?
Trent's always been great. He's very supportive, and I've only had great experiences with Trent. He's a really lovely guy. Um, very creative. And expansive. He has that mindset.
So like approaching a session with him, is it kind of like sending tracks? Or are you guys working like
I don't know. I never worked in the studio with him. I mean, I just know him as a friend and a supporter. I mean, he invited Bauhaus to be special guests on tour, and we would hang out a bit, on the tour. Prior to that, he came to see Love and Rockets, and when he's in New Orleans, and invited us back to his place, showed me a studio, and so Peter Murphy did some recordings while we were on tour with him, just sort of spontaneous covers, and they did each other's songs. Maybe that's what you're thinking of.
I think that's what I'm thinking of. I think I got that. But that's cool. Like just kind of going off like the whole like there is a weird ethos in the Cleveland music, and I'm glad music scene and music history. But I'm glad it's resonating with other people. That's like and like
Yeah.
in this kind of way that's like maybe hidden underneath all these layers, which is beautiful.
Hmm.
Um, was like were you guys like as far as like were you ever moved by like the no wave scene and the no
Oh
wave?
yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, very much aware of that because when we went to New York, that was happening in like 1980.
right.
We played one gig with DNA.
Oh,
They
cool.
opened
Yeah.
for us, Arto Lindsay, and that's actually where Daniel got the hit playing the guitar with a drumstick. He kind of cribbed that from Arto Lindsay because he was using that. We love them. We thought they were really interesting. James Chance,
Right.
all
The
that.
contortions.
Yeah,
Oh, Adele Berthet played with them too. That's my tie-in with that. Okay, yeah. She like
yeah.
played guitar or something, I think.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Okay, yeah,
yeah.
I'm seeing Lydia Lunch on Sunday.
Oh
She's
yeah.
invited me to be on her guest list, and she's playing in LA. So I've never met her before. We're going to meet her afterwards.
Oh, she's incredible. I got to talk with her a little bit, and I saw her play in Canton, Ohio. And like, as far as like the no wave ethos, she's it. Dadaism is
Hmm.
all about it. She was
Yeah.
so cool. That's exciting, man. That'll be
Hmm.
a fun Sunday. Cool.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, so like, what was I gonna say? One thing I did like with Dead Can Dance. I mean, this is I'm now I'm bouncing everywhere now because I want to respect your time. Bauhaus covered a tune of theirs. Um, was it like so? Those types of groups, did you find yourself like influenced or influencing them?
I wouldn't say they influenced us. I mean, I've got great respect for them. I also think Brendan Perry is brilliant. His solo records are brilliant. Um, and I know, he very much appreciates our music. Sort of just mutual respect, really.
There's that one live album you guys have where you guys cover a Dead Can Dance tune,
Yeah, yeah, Severance. It's a
right?
beautiful song. Yeah. As far as like an influence, as far as a band being influential, the most influential band I would say would be the Velvet Underground.
Okay. That makes sense with the kind of space that's there and like that open tuning and just like the
Yeah,
yeah,
and the angularity of it and the atonal mixed with very melodic music. And all the offshoots from that as well. John Cale solo, Lou Reed solo, of course. Nico, and we played with Nico. She
yeah,
actually Nico actually wanted us to be her regular backing band after she played a gig with us in Manchester.
yeah.
She asked us to be her band and come on tour with her. That was in 1981, I think it was, 82.
That's incredible. Like, so was that? Did she have her album out yet, or was that before that? I'm trying to remember when record
I
came
can't
out.
remember. I can't remember. I mean, she's had a few albums. I don't know. We did Waiting for the Man. She
Yeah,
asked, she wanted to do a song with us, so we said, "What about Waiting for the Man?" So we did that. And then she came to another gig. We did it again.
Lofner covers that too on the that box set. Um,
Yes, he does.
oh, that's it. Oh, that's so cool. Like, what was the turning point on? No, we have to do our own thing, or
Oh, we thought about it for about 15 minutes.
yeah,
No, 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 no. It's flattering, man.
that's so cool. Especially that like with someone who influenced you that most,
Yeah.
that
Mm,
much.
mm.
Oh, that's so cool. Um, I guess one other kind of Bauhaus question and like one-off influences. You guys, you did a film with David Bowie, The Hunger. Did you?
Mm.
I mean, I know it like, and you guys play at the beginning of it. Did you get to like interact with Bowie at all during the process
Yeah.
of? Yeah.
Yeah, he was great with us. I think he was kind of relating to us as the like outside of the film industry and the boys in the band kind of thing. And but I had a very special experience with him.
Yeah.
And yeah, so they were setting up for a take. So he was in his dressing room, and we had an area that was just next door, adjacent to his dressing room, and there was a jukebox in that area, an old Wurlitz 1950s jukebox, really well stocked with all like 50s, 60s, and 70s singles. And I was just there on my own, just having a look at the music on this jukebox, deciding what to play because it was all working. And then I became aware of this presence behind me, a looming, very strong presence. And then I hear this voice, "Do you mind if I pick one?" And it was Bowie.
Yeah.
So I went, "Oh, no, please be my guest." So then he's sort of looking it over, and he presses the digits, and he plays "Grooving with Mr. Blow" by Mr. Blow. Do you know that instrumental? 1970. It's a great instrumental. Features harmonica part, and then he starts dancing in front of me. So just me and him there. So, and he's like, that's like a couple of feet away from me. He's just a full on, like he's on stage dancing and smiling, that smile. And I'm just kind of nodding, thinking, this is surreal. And then I got kind of cheeky with it. And that song, I always thought that he cribbed the harmonica part from that for his track, A New Career in a New Town on low. So anyways, he's dancing, and I said, "This reminds me of something." And he kept dancing. He goes, "Yeah, what?" I said, "Oh, it's one of yours." Goes, "Oh, what?" I said, "It's off low." He goes, "What is it?" I said, "A New Career in a New Town." And with that, he put his finger to his lips, winked, smiled, and carried on dancing. So I got his number.
Yeah.
So it was amazing. That was amazing.
That's insane. That's so cool.
Yeah.
And is that he just danced until he had to hit the stage or hit the camera mark, hit his mark?
Well, he just answered that song, and then they were pretty much ready, so he had to go back into his dressing room, comb his hair, and then he did the scenes.
Oh wow! Yeah, the takeaway of that, just this guy fully immersed in all of it and shedding this knowledge on just a tune he enjoys, and for you to be able to pick it up in that moment, like
Yes.
if I was in that moment, I would just be like flabbergasted, like like you know what I mean, like to be able to like trace the musical lineage and enjoy that. Like,
yeah, it was really magic. Yeah.
Cool. Well, you've worked with like so many people in these collaborative efforts. Like, out of all these, like, what is like kind of a nugget of advice that you found has helped you through these processes to get the most out of them? Like, has anyone like kind of like showed you kind of like some type of insight that has been guidance that you keep finding yourself going back to?
Well, I would say generally just be open to others' ideas, receptive, and anybody can have an idea. It doesn't even have to be one of the musicians. It can be the tape op, and just not have any damn ego, and just like listen and be open and consider anything that's coming in, and then you can reject it or you can accept it, or you can spark an idea of your own, and that's the nature of collaboration. That's the only way that collaboration can work. So just to maintain a attitude of receptivity, open receptivity.
It's well said. David, thank you so much for your time, my friend. I really appreciate it. I've really enjoyed, I've been diving into your career forever. So this was a treat to get to talk with you. And this new record, The Night Crickets, is so incredible. And
thank you. Yeah. This has been a really great interview. It's quite unusual, the questions you've asked, and you obviously know your stuff. And I actually quite thoroughly enjoyed it.
Well, that means the world to me, because like I'm totally afraid to bore whoever I'm talking with the same questions.
Not at all. No.
Thank you so much.
Yo, Spike Spiegel here. You just listened to Zig of the Gig podcast. Keep riding the bebop. See you, Space Cowboy.